We're a little more than 6 weeks away from Election Day, and Ohio is smack dab in the middle of all of it, and that's where we want to start our discussion with our 9 News political analysts, 2 experts of long standing, Pat Crowley and WVXU.org political writer Howard Wilkinson. Gentlemen, welcome. We'll talk about Ohio in a minute, but let's just quickly deal with the gorilla in the room. So Romney finally releases his tax returns, 14.1% he paid. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, that's not going to impress a lot of people, 14.1% for a fellow who makes as much money as he does. And it'll become an issue, but I don't think it'll be a determining factor in any way.
No, they were softening it up as campaigns like to do. You know, you start hearing last week that it was going to be 13%, around 13%, right. So they were trying to soften it up a little bit. It'll continue to be an issue. It plays in that he's out of touch with most people. He's at a different level than most people, and of course that leads right into the 47%.
It just contributes to this elitist image.
So in your view, should he have done it sooner?
Oh, I think certainly he should have done it sooner and gotten it out of the way, you know, during the primary season.
Yeah, you know, that's what Obama's campaign was very effective in driving the message and defining Romney all through the summer, all through the primary season, and this was a big part of it, this narrative about him not releasing his tax returns.
Well, let's talk about the fact that Ohio is kind of smack dab in the middle of it, as we put it. Roughly, give or take a few tenths of a point, about a 4.89 percentage point lead for President Obama over Mitt Romney in the state of Ohio, 5 points for all intents and purposes. What did Obama do right and or Romney do wrong, given that number?
Well, I think the economy, the New York Times magazine was a cover story 2 weeks ago. The economy in Ohio is turning around. Now, who's going to get credit for it? Kasich tries to take credit for it, or Obama wants credit for it. But the point of the matter is, with the auto industry, with the shale gas, the economy's doing well. And I think that the sitting president, at this point, it's got to help him, because that's the narrative against, that's the slam on Obama, that he's hurt the economy. And I think it helps him at this point.
Yeah, what it's doing, and particularly the bailout of the auto industry, is helping him in Northeast Ohio, in Toledo, in places where people are actually going back to work, and they can see the effects of it, and it's going to drive turnout in those parts of the state. And as Obama will remind people in Ohio all the time, 1 out of every 8 jobs in Ohio is related in some way or another to the auto industry.
Mm-hmm. You know, there was the Wall Street Journal article that essentially said there are 3 counties in the country that will affect the outcome of this election, and Hamilton County, Howard, was one of them.
Yes. And Hamilton County may well be one of them, because he won Hamilton County 4 years ago by about 30,000 votes. And he won the state by about 276,000 votes. It was a very important piece of the puzzle that he took Hamilton County away from the Republicans. George W. Bush had won it twice, and then here comes this Obama surge in 2008, where you had all of these new voters who were coming out for the first time, many of them African American, many of them young voters, and they won this county for him. Now, the trick is going to be replicating that in 2012. That's a trick for the Republicans,
and
for the Democrats.
And that's all get out the vote. That's
sure
the ground game that you hear.
You know, a Democrat hadn't carried Hamilton County since Lyndon Johnson. Right. Just to show you the track record on this. And you're exactly right, Clyde. It's all about turning your people out right now. Firing them up, ginning up the machine. You know, Obama was here last week. Ryan's going to be here this coming week. I mean, you're going to continue to see him come into this community.
But it is going to be about getting those people who came out for the first time in 2008 and firing them up enough to make them come out again in 2012 for Barack Obama.
And that's a big concern on the Republican side. I was at a Republican event this week up in the suburbs, and a lot of the Republicans were complaining, and you read it in the national press, complaining about Romney's campaign and very unhappy with it. And it was such a brutal primary fight. You have to wonder if there are Republicans sitting on their hands as well. Obama's probably not going to turn out a lot of the same people that came out last time. You just don't have that enthusiasm for the first-time candidate. But the Republicans are going to hurt themselves if they sit on their hands because of the lack of enthusiasm with Romney and the fact that the campaign's not been that effective.
Go ahead, Howard. You were going to say something.
Well, one of the things I hear particularly from like Tea Party folks, they're not particularly enthusiastic about Romney. If you ask them, are they going to vote for him? They'll say, oh yeah. but they're more interested in candidates like Josh Mandel running for the U.S. Senate. They're much more enthusiastic about that. These are the Tea Party folks who 2 years ago helped the Republicans sweep Ohio from top to bottom, and they're just not ginned up yet.
Okay, two more things. First of all, let's talk about the independents. You know, they supposedly are the battleground over which this will be fought. Do you get the sense that their views have hardened? Are they still in play at this point?
I think a lot of polling shows that there's still people that can be persuaded. The persuadables is what they're being called this election. And I think as much as in one poll I read this week, as much as 22% of the voters out there are still deciding on where they can go. So yeah, they can be persuaded. A lot of times at this point, particularly as you get in October, after you cover these campaigns, when they were over, you'd go to the candidates and they would say, we knew by the middle of October we were going to win or lose. You know these things? I don't know if this time because it's so tight. Now in other swing states, particularly as you go farther west, Obama's widened that gap out there, but here it seems like it's going to stay pretty close. I mean, 5 points is basically, almost within the margin of error of about 3 or 3.5 points. So it's still pretty tight here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it is going to be close in Ohio, and there are people who can be persuaded. There are leaners to the Democrats, leaners to the Republicans. But if you get the right message and you speak to them directly, they are still persuadable.
And this seems like a race that just, there could be some more October surprises out there.
Sure.
Like the videotape. And then like Obama coming out, I think it was yesterday or Thursday, and talked about, well, you really can't change Washington. And that really fed right into the Republicans' talking points. Romney sounded as fired up as ever when he was in Sarasota, jumping on that comment. So, who's going to step in it, what's going to go out there? I think it's still pretty volatile and frankly interesting at this point.
Once Obama said that about, you can't change Washington from the inside, you have to change it from the outside, I must have gotten 14 press releases from the Romney campaign just hammering at that point, and they're going to hammer at it and hammer at it and hammer at it, and you're going to hear it in the debates.
Which was my next point. Everybody is saying essentially that the debates represent probably Mitt Romney's last opportunity to knock one out of the park, a grand slam, 9th inning home run that saves his campaign for him and actually puts him in the White House. So these debates are pretty important. What's the likelihood, though, that dramatic change will come out of these debates?
Romney's a pretty good debater. He showed that during the primary, where there was about a debate every other night. So you're going to get good at it. Romney was lower in expectations this week. I read an interview where he said, "Look, everybody knows everything about Obama. I'm the new guy in the room, so everything I say is going to be much more scrutinized, and they're going to hit me a lot harder." I've always covered, and Howard, you may have a different point on this, but I don't think you really win an election on a debate, but you can certainly lose one, and that's what people will be watching for.
That's exactly right. And if I were Barack Obama, I would take Bill Clinton's speech at the Democratic National Convention and read it and read it and read it, because there were so many talking points for him in these debates where he refutes many of the things that Romney's been talking about. He better take a cue from Bill Clinton.
And he did that in Eden Park this week when he was channeling and mentioned Clinton several times in that speech.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Guys, thanks a bunch. Appreciate it. We're going to have to do this again. It was way too much fun. We've been talking with our political analysts, Pat Crowley, and from WVXU.org, political writer Howard Wilkinson. Again, guys, thanks a bunch.
Thanks, Clyde.
Thank you.